without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Nina Bacharach, CEO of Bergen Volunteers, to tell you a little bit about Bergen Volunteers and about our speaker today. Go ahead, Nina.
Hi, thank you, Melissa. Thank you for, oh, is that okay, something weird happened with the volume, but I think we're good now. There's always got to be something technology that happens, otherwise it's not, right. So thank you, Melissa. Thank you for putting this together. And yes, I'm Nina Bacharach. I'm sort of the new CEO of Bergen Volunteers. I started in September, about 8 months ago during the pandemic. I'm just thrilled to be here and so appreciative of everything that Melissa is doing to expand some of our initiatives. So yeah, like Melissa said, this is the first installment of our Lunch and Learn series, and we're pleased to present these kind of informative seminars. You know, we're hopeful that they'll be of interest to everyone. We have some upcoming ones. I'm just going to go over a couple of dates. The next 3 are June, July, and September. It's going to be on media misinformation, a virtual tour of the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island, and then the third one is about play and art with your children and kind of how you can connect with your children through art. I want to just go over a couple of upcoming dates. For those of you who know about our Bergen Leads program, that those applications for our next cohort starting in September, the applications are due tomorrow. In a little bit, I'll talk about our programming and I'll tell you a little bit more about Leads. Our volunteer management training we have coming up on June 11th, if anyone's interested in that. That will be in person, right, Melissa?
Yeah. Correct, yes, okay. We're doing it in person.
Yeah, okay, and then our Friday Forum, which is a wonderful networking event that always has a really interesting panel discussion, will be June 18th, also in person at the Stony Hill Inn. Volunteer management is here at Bergen Volunteers. Our cohort that is graduating from Bergen Leads, their final project is going to be presented at a forum on June 29th that we're going to be live streaming. And then all of this information obviously can be found on our website, and we encourage you to get involved with us. I want to thank our sponsor today. Thank you so much to James D. Brown, CPA, for sponsoring today's Lunch and Learn. We are really grateful for your support of our organization, the work that we're doing. You know, it's through investments like yours and your investment in us that we can continue to do some of the work we're doing. And then speaking of that, I'll tell you a little bit about our organization quickly, and then I'll introduce our speaker today, and then I'll get out of the way. I know you're interested in that. So Bergen Volunteers, for those of you who don't know, I do recognize some faces. So I know some of you know about our organization, but for those of you that don't, Bergen Volunteers is 55 years old this year. We're a nonprofit based in Hackensack, but we do serve the whole county and beyond. We sort of act as a social welfare safety net through volunteerism, through our own community programs, which we run. We match volunteers to external organizations and the community programs that they run. We offer civic leadership and community engagement. So we help businesses, nonprofits with their corporate social responsibility. We can match volunteer opportunities between them and wherever is needed. We collaborate a lot with nonprofits in our area. We serve youth, veterans, seniors, individuals with disabilities, really anyone that needs extra support. We consider ourselves sort of the great connectors, where we're matching resources with needs and needs with resources. If we don't have a service, we'll connect you. We're kind of like the hub in the community. We utilize about 500 volunteers annually and serve about 5,000 people. So what I was talking about before with our community programs, some of the ones that we run, we help individuals remain safely in their homes. We offer minor home repairs, grocery shopping, medicine pickup. We furnish apartments for people who are leaving homeless shelters and moving into new homes for the first time. We offer free tax preparation for low to moderate income families, gift giving for those who can't afford gifts during the holiday season. We offer mentoring, a reading program for students who are falling behind. And then we also do necessities drives, like for things that are not covered by SNAP, or school supplies or food drives in the summer for people who are students who are on free and reduced lunch. And then of course our leadership program that I spoke about, which is a 10-month-long program we have a leadership curriculum. We do site visits. We learn about the county and civic engagement, how to be a leader. There's the project that I talked about, which always focuses on some challenge that's happening. And then that also, we also do that for college and teens. So again, the applications for that are due tomorrow. I don't have time to tell you all about it. It's a very, very interesting program. I did it myself before I was the CEO here, and I absolutely loved it. So essentially, we are what I consider a community center without walls for the physical and mental health of our communities. So enough about us. You can look at us on bergenvolunteers.org. Now I'm going to introduce our speaker today, David Haas. He came from our Bergen Leads class of 2017. That's not where he came from, but that's how we know him. David Haas is a certified financial planner. He helps individuals navigate the college financial aid process by offering his expertise to families preparing for college. David helps create a budget and offers knowledge to minimize student loans. David received his BS from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and an MBA in finance from Pace University. David also has a certificate in financial planning from Fairleigh Dickinson. We're so pleased, David, that you're here today with us and that you're sharing your expertise with us. And so now, without further ado, welcome, David.
Thank you so much, Nina. And I can't say enough good things about Bergen Leads. I had a wonderful experience with it. If you haven't signed up and you're thinking about it, you have a day and a half to do it. So get it done. It really was a great experience and helps you to know about your community and to be a leader in your community. Okay, so let me share my slides. We'll start from there. Here we go. Hopefully everybody can see this. So I'm going to talk about navigating financial aid. This is going to be kind of introductory about college financial aid, but there should be some good tidbits in there, even if you already know the process. There we go. So I'm going to just say a few more words about myself and my company. I own Css Financial Advisors. I started it in 2015. We're a financial planning firm. We help our clients with financial planning, investment management, and now college financial planning. We're actually registered in New Jersey and New York, but we do work with clients in other states. And I'm an advisor. Mike Dunn is another advisor. He's actually on the webinar today, and we have two websites: one for the our regular business, cssfinancial.com, and the other one for the college financial planning, collegemoneymatch.com. And this is about me, which Nina already gave me a great introduction. I just will mention also I'm education director of the Financial Planning Association of New Jersey. That's actually not educating the general public, it's educating the other financial planners. And of course, I have put my own two kids through college. They're now 26 and 28. But so I have some relatively recent experience with the college process myself. And actually my son's career now, he happens to be a college admissions counselor and he works in Massachusetts. So college costs. College is one of the largest costs in your lifetime. And to put it in comparison here, the price of a Honda CR-V hybrid, I happen to be looking for a car right now, so I might actually buy one of these. It's around $31,000. So it was top of my mind, so I put it in here. I got this is off of Zillow. So this is for Bergen County. It's a relatively modest home. 3-bedroom, 1-bath house in Waldwick, New Jersey, $409,900. There's a lot of communities in Bergen County where the average price is much higher than that. And now here comes college. 4 years at NYU. List price This includes some projected increases. If you went now, about almost $340,000. Okay, so you're going to save money. You're not going to go to the expensive private college, and you're going to go to the public college, TCNJ, an excellent public institution in New Jersey. It's still over $150,000 for 4 years. So it's a significant investment, shall we say. And what if you have more than one child? What if you have 4 children? In fact, college, if you're not getting any aid, winds up being probably the most expensive thing that you can invest in. But it's still a good investment. So why? Why is college so expensive? It's actually not because of the cost of the education. So sure, educating a student is expensive, but there was a study by the Lumina Foundation that it actually cost $14,000 in 2014 to educate a student at a public university. So by the education, we're talking about the tuition. Obviously, room and board can be on top of that, but that's about what it costs, and yet the actual list price is higher. And it's not really because of highly paid administrators. That's often in the news. Nina mentioned that I went to Rensselaer. Rensselaer has a distinction of a college president who in 2018 made $5.8 million. So that's a little bit of an outlier. I think that she got some extra money at that year. That was in her contract, but certainly there are many college presidents who make $1 million or more per year, and there are many who make quite a bit less. In spite of all that, that's not really enough to make it that expensive. And you read about how wonderful life is for college students. The lazy river, I think it's RIT and maybe a couple of other schools put in a lazy river for their students. It's not even really because of that stuff. College is expensive because some people are willing to pay that much. That's the honest truth. And according to the organization NACUBO, which is the National Association of College and University Business Offices, 89% of the students in private college got some kind of financial discount or aid. So basically, it's yield pricing. It's like buying an airline ticket. So there's a very high listed cost. Needy families might get some financial aid, so we can subtract that. Then some students will get discounts. They call discounts merit aid or merit scholarship, but basically it's a discount. And that comes up with the net price that you pay. And similar to buying an airline ticket, if you ask the next passenger next to you or the next college student next to you, how much did they pay? It will be different for everyone. So what are the discounts to the college list price? You have financial aid, which people use the term financial aid loosely, but I'm going to try and use it for needs-based aid. So this is aid that is based on a family's financial condition only. And then there's merit aid or scholarship. So this is based on the desirability of the student or perhaps the parents to the college. And students are desirable for a number of reasons, and so are parents. I'll go into some of those reasons. Let's talk about the needs-based aid first. So I just want to make sure. Oops. Let me see if I can see the chat. I just want to make sure. Okay. So I see that there's some questions in the chat. I tell you what, I'm going to definitely have time to answer questions at the end. I might get to some of your questions, so then we'll go over them right at the end, but I will definitely spend time answering questions. Okay, so needs-based aid. So how much you can afford to pay, and I should put the afford in quotes because this is really how much you're told you can afford to pay, is called the expected family contribution, or EFC. So this is a number that actually the federal government comes up with in their formula, and the college also comes up with it. And it's what they think you can afford to contribute to your students' college education. And the college's idea of EFC is unlikely to be your idea. Colleges actually don't meet 100% of need. Although a college, typically the Ivy League colleges, Princeton, Columbia, they do meet 100% of the need. But a lot of other schools don't meet 100% of the need. So even though you might have an EFC, the college might give you, some percentage of that. So here's an example, RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. My cousin's son graduated from there 2 years ago. The cost of attendance, $65,879. That's the latest figure, so that's probably the current year. 87% of the need is met. And of that, 84% is met through grants. How do we know that? The colleges actually publish these figures. Aid can be in several forms. We'll go over some of that, but it can be in grants, it can be loans, and it can be work study. And needs-based aid, it can come from the federal government, it can come from state government, and it can come from the school itself. There are outside scholarships. Everybody talks about outside scholarships. I'm not really covering that, but I could mention it later. That's not part of this discussion. We're talking here about needs-based aid. It's not outside scholarships. The other thing about needs-based aid is that you actually have to apply for it every year. So the college gets to go through the details of your finances, not just when you're applying as a freshman, but you have to repeat the process every year that you're going. Oops. I want to go over there are 3 financial aid calculation methods. I want to go over the federal method in some detail and then talk about the differences with the other method. So the federal method, that's used by public colleges and universities and a few private ones. I said very few, but actually there are quite a few that do use it. It relies on information from the Fafsa form, and that's the free application for federal student aid, and it only uses the information from this form. You apply online, you fill out the FAFSA online, you do it at fafsa.ed.gov. The FAFSA form is available October 1st. So, May 1st was the commitment deadline for students. So everybody who's listening to me now, you might have a current junior or current sophomore. Next year, you're going to be a senior or junior. And if you're going to be a senior next year, you're going to apply October 1st. You're going to fill out the FAFSA form. And then that information gets sent to the colleges that you apply to. The FAFSA determines the EFC, the expected family contribution. The information in there is based on the prior year. So 2 years earlier. So if we're talking about college in the fall of 2022, you're applying for college in 2021, and the information in the FAFSA is going to be based on your 2019 income and your current assets at the time of application. By assets, I mean your wealth at that time. And the formula, here's what the formula is loosely based on. There's a progressive formula that is 22%, between 22% and 47% of parent income. So that's the percentage of income that counts for the EFC. And it's actually zero. It's actually 0 to 47% because, in fact, below a certain amount, and I can't remember the amount, they don't expect you to provide any income. It's 50% of student income above $6,840. So if a student is making money, there's a certain basic amount that they can keep, which is the $6,840, but 50% of the amount above that is expected to be for college. However, it only includes 5.64% of parent assets. And those parent assets don't include retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, annuities. It doesn't include home equity, but it does include vacation home equity. So it includes other real estate, but not the home that you live in. And it doesn't include the value of a business with less than 100 employees. That 5.64% does include 529 plans. So a 529 plan is one of the best ways to save for college if you're saving for college early. And I'm not really going over the 529 plans now, but the way they are set up is they have a beneficiary, which is the student, and they have a custodian, which is often the parent. So if the parent is the custodian, then the 529 plan counts at 5.64% per year. And then the formula includes 20% of student assets. So if a student has a savings account that was money, given by grandparents or earnings from previous work, then 20% of that is counted. So this is Bergen County. We have some great opportunities for jobs. If your high school student was working at Camp Goss ski area like my son was, and your student decided to bank their money like they should, well, cough it up for college. The FAFSA only includes the custodial parent. Now that's actually something that's changing. I'll go over that in a later slide. But for the upcoming year, in a situation with divorced parents, only the custodial parent counts. Now, who's the custodial parent? The custodial parent is the parent that the student lived with the most during the year. And if you have 50-50 custody, who's to say? No, to be honest, no one is going to check this in minute detail because nobody can prove it. So what does that mean? That means you get to choose the parent with the lowest income. And last on the list is that aid actually increases for multiple children in college. So they give you a break if you have multiple children. I have a good friend who has quadruplets. So, and the quadruplets are graduating from college this year. And, so he was helped out by this. Institutional method. So the institutional method, basically when you read institutional, what it means is each institution gets to decide their own formula. They are somewhat similar though. So this is used by many private colleges and a couple of public ones. The public ones are Michigan, Virginia, William and Mary, Arizona, and North Carolina. And the institutional method, you still have to fill out the FAFSA form, but now you get to fill out the CSS Profile Form. CSS is College Scholarship Service. That's what it stands for. But basically, it's just another form. The CSS Profile Form is at collegeboard.org. It asks the very same questions as the FAFSA, but goes into much more detail than the FAFSA. And consideration for aid now also includes home equity in the home you live in. They're going to pull in retirement assets. There have been annuities that have been sold to people in the past to avoid or to allow their student to be able to qualify for aid when normally they wouldn't. And those annuities, they want to catch those annuities. Plus, if you have $1 million in your retirement account, they want to know because you can pay more for college. It includes all businesses, including those with less than 100 employees. And for divorce situations, the CSS profile is going to ask questions about both parents. The 529 plan, instead of counting at 5.64%, it counts at 25%. The other thing to know is that you're going to fill out this CSS profile, and then colleges often have their own forms in addition. So they're going to ask detailed questions about different things that they care about, particularly about businesses. I had a client who applied to Northeastern, and Northeastern asked a lot of really detailed questions about a business that a parent might own. Then there's the consensus method. So this is used by Ivy League and some other colleges. The consensus method, basically the colleges got together and said, the FAFSA is not good enough for us. We do want to have more information, but we are going to come together and we're going to use the same formula. And we're going to try to be more, I don't know what the right word is, maybe I'll say socially responsible with how we calculate aid. So it includes home equity. So if you have a huge home, yes, expect that some of the home equity is going to be in there, but not all. So if you have a modest home, the home equity is capped at 1.2 times the parent's income. And then the 529 plan, they push that back down to 5%, which is similar to the federal method. It still includes retirement savings and annuities. It still includes the value of small business. So, as I said before, financial aid is in the form of grants, loans, and work study. So for the grants, there are federal Pell Grants. The maximum is $6,495 a year. There is talk about raising that. I think that's in one of the proposals that President Biden has made. Will increase the Pell Grants, but at this point, that's what it is. Then there's a SEOG grant. SEOG stands for Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, and the max for that is $4,000 a year. So the FAFSA determines the Pell Grant, and I believe that the institution can add on the SEOG grant. There can be state grants. So the colleges have access to state money, and that's different from different states. In some cases, it may be to help keep students in state so there's no brain drain. And in some cases, it may be to attract students from out of state. So that varies. And then the money that's left is institutional grant. Think of that as discount. So that's basically, even though it's needs-based, it's still a discount that the institution is providing, and it may be based on need or a combination of need and merit. There's federal loans that I mentioned. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a later slide, but there's subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. For freshman year, the max subsidized loan is $3,500. The max the max total loans for federal would be $5,500 for a freshman. It does go up a little bit after that. And work study, that's typically $1,000, $1,500, something like that.
David, I don't want to interrupt your flow. There's a few questions in the chat regarding some of the prior slides. Do you want to take a look, or do you want me to read them and maybe we answer them, or do you want to wait until the end?
If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind waiting it to the end, because I go, rehash some of this material in a little bit more detail, and maybe I will have answered them.
Perfect.
So it just might be more efficient.
Okay, you got it.
But I'd love to have a discussion, and if there's further questions, let me power on through this.
Perfect.
So let's talk about merit aid, which I like to refer to as a discount. So we already talked about the fact that colleges provide discounts to some students. The colleges have their goals, their demographic goals, their academic goals. So who are they going to give money to? Students who are at the high end of academic performance. Now, that means high end of academic performance for the college. So if the college is highly selective, it's going to be greater. If the college is less selective and you're a pretty decent student, you still might get money there. Students who are active contributors are important. So leadership positions in clubs or activities, sports achievement. And I'm not really talking about sports scholarships here. That's a whole different animal. I am definitely not an expert on sports scholarships. But if you're doing a sport and you take a leadership position, maybe you're not even good enough to get a real scholarship. The fact that you're doing that helps for getting merit money. Nonprofit leadership. I'm reading about kids who start their own nonprofits. If you're really doing something that shows leadership, especially if you've been trained by Bergen leads in doing that, that can help you get money for colleges, as well as just gaining admission in the first place. Colleges have geographic goals. So colleges want some diversity, diversity in all its forms, and that includes geographic diversity. Colleges, a major is also important. So if you apply for a major that is not that popular in that college, you might get into a better college and might get more money. So, I went to an engineering school, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I'm not even sure if they have an English major. They might. If you apply for English at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, you're likely to get more money. You just are, because they want to have you go there. And then the last thing is, how interested are you? This is similar to what coaches tell you in applying in the first place, in getting in. So, go to the open houses, go get an interview, even if interviews are optional. Talk to them and participate as much as you can to show interest. And colleges are more likely to want to give you a discount if they know you want to go there. Here's some more facts. You can bargain once you get in. So you're going to get a financial package with your admission to the college. And if you are unhappy with your package, you can write an appeal letter. And I'm not going to go into the details of appeals, but there are ways of of doing it. There are ways of bargaining. If a similar college gave you a better deal, but you want to go to this other one and they didn't give you that good a deal, you can actually say, I'll pick RPI and RIT. I got this great package from RIT. I really want to go to RPI, but I really can't, I can't afford it. Can you provide more aid? And that can be very successful. So especially this year, my clients this year have done really well with appeals. I have to say, I think the colleges are very nervous about their admissions yield. The other thing about merit aid is that it's usually renewed automatically. The only thing is that the student may have to meet academic goals, typically a 3.0 or better average. You maintain that, you'll keep your money. So while the need award needs to be reapplied for every year, the merit aid is usually just renewed automatically. Budget. You need a budget. So remember that college is a financial commitment for 4 years. In fact, I saw this figure someplace that only 41% of students overall graduate within 4 years. Rutgers, New Brunswick has a 64.7% 4-year graduation rate. That doesn't mean students are dropping out. It just means maybe they're taking advantage of a co-op program. Maybe they're slowing it down. We're including a lot of students who may be non-traditional students, in the sense that they're not going to college at 18. They're going for a degree later, but still realize that it could take even more than 4 years. You really don't want to have $100,000 or more of debt for your degree. So, be careful. Set your budget before you apply so that you can understand what you can afford when you get your financial packages. How do you pay? The budget from your parents or the parents, which means how much of the parents' income can be set aside. And then there's savings, which may be in a 529 plan, maybe other forms. What's the total budget for that? You probably want to say, okay, 25% of that for each year. Maybe there's grandparent help. Actually, the way the rules are right now for financial aid, if you are getting needs-based financial aid, you should use the grandparent help the last 2 years. I think that may be changing, but it counts as untaxed income in the most, the upcoming FAFSA. I think that may be changing for later FAFSAs. But the CSS, I'm not quite sure what they're going to be doing. And then there's loans. So there can be loans for the students, loans for the parents. Let me quickly talk about the loans. So there are federal student loans, and 2.75% was the interest rate for this year. They announced the interest rates and changed them July 1st each year. And I just read the new rate is 3.734%. So it went up. This varies with long-term interest rates, and long-term interest rates have gone up. So federal student loans. So it's a fixed loan once you get it. It's just each new loan is going to be at whatever the current rate is. The difference between subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans is that for subsidized loans, there's no interest while the student is in school, and then 6 months after the graduation. And the interest only starts then. For unsubsidized loans, you don't have to pay the interest. It accrues. You could pay the interest if you want to, but it accrues from day one, but it's deferred until after you graduate. It's capitalized into the loan. The maximum federal student loan, it's actually recently gone up, It's now $31,000, $5,500 the first year, $6,500 the second year, $7,500 the third and fourth years. And then if there's a fifth year, you can actually take $4,000 additional. I believe that's new. And these loans are better because they're eligible for income-driven repayment plans. They're dischargeable on the death or disability of the student. They're eligible for some forgiveness programs as a public service loan forgiveness program, teacher loan forgiveness program. So these are decent loans. These are the ones I would go to first. And there doesn't need to be a cosigner. So the student is taking out this loan. There are federal Parent Plus loans. So your eligibility depends on your credit score. You have to have a good credit score. They don't check income. There's actually no maximum for the loan. So parents can get themselves into trouble here. I suggest that they do not. The nice thing is that these loans are also eligible for an income-driven repayment plan if they are consolidated. I'm not going to go into the details, just know that, that there are ways of getting into an income-driven repayment plan. They're also dischargeable on disability and death, and they're actually eligible for the public service loan forgiveness. I'm not sure about teacher loan forgiveness, and that's public service loan forgiveness for the borrower, which in this case is the parent. One thing to know is that student loans in general, I said federal loans here, but in general, they're not discharged in bankruptcy. They're usually not discharged in bankruptcy. So you can't get out of a huge loan load by going bankrupt. There's some other loans. I'm just going to go over this quickly because I want to leave enough time for questions. But there's some New Jersey loans, NJ class loans, and they're private student loans. In both cases, they require income. So NJ class or private student loans, it could be the parent or the student who's the borrower, but the student needs a cosigner. And the NJ class loans, I believe there's an income contingent repayment plan that's available. Private student loans, maybe, maybe not. So that's a loan that's going to come from a private lender, and you're just dealing with that lender. One thing to realize is for private student loans, they often are not dischargeable on death of the student. So the cosigner will still wind up owing the money. I mean, that would be a terrible tragedy. The student dies, the parent is left not only dealing with the death, but then still owes the money for the student loans. So if a private student loan is taken out, there should be a life insurance policy on the student, which is usually very inexpensive because, you know, a life insurance policy on an 18, 19, 20-year-old is not expensive. You could be borrowing with your home equity or you know, other forms of personal borrowing. And last but not least, I want to mention that you can borrow from yourself in your 401k plan. Most 401k plans allow loans up to $50,000. Actually, recently that was changed for COVID-related loans up to $100,000, but I think that's expiring. That's just for COVID relief. So the normal loan is $50,000 or 50% of the balance if the balance is lower than $100,000. But you're borrowing from yourself. You are paying interest, but the interest goes to yourself. It goes into the retirement plan. Okay, college choice is very important. I'll be quick here. More prestigious name colleges give fewer discounts. You basically, Ivy Leagues hardly ever give much discount. You can predict or you can try to predict both the financial aid and the merit aid because there are formulas. The colleges publish formulas, and there's software. I actually offer that software through my service. It's based on past awards as well as information that the colleges publish. I would think about applying to more target and safety schools from a financial point of view because you're likely to get more money. So, you know, they tell us, at least what they told us with our kids was 2 safety schools, which you're sure to get into, 2 target schools, which you're likely to get into, and 2 reach schools, which you might get into. And here I say increase it to 3 safety, 3 target, and 2 reach. Avoid early admission. Early action is great because, so early action is non-binding on the student. Early admission is binding on the student. If the student gets in, they're supposed to go there. They basically already made an agreement. If I get in, I'm going to go. So I would avoid early admission from a financial point of view because there's no incentive for the college to give you a good financial package. Early action is great because you learn your financial package early. Maybe not as early as you learn whether you got in, but you're still likely to learn it early, which means it gives you more time to consider the financial aspect of the decision. And I kind of talked about budgeting already. I say lay the budget out before applying to college. The parents should tell the student what they can afford to provide the student. Don't surprise the student. Oh, I got into Princeton. I'm sorry, we can't afford to send you to Princeton. So don't have that conversation. Instead, have it early on. So I wanted to do a little case study here, just as an example. So here we have a student, Malcolm Morris, and parents are John and Esther, and there's a sister, Ann. John makes $120,000 a year. Esther makes $25,000. They've been great savers. They actually have $250,000 of home equity. $100,000 of savings and investment. That includes perhaps some 529 plans. And then in their 401ks, they've been saving, they have $300,000 between the 2 of them. Malcolm is going to be a high school senior in 2021, 2022, and Ann is a junior. Malcolm is a decent student, 3.95 GPA, and he got a 34 on his ACT. Malcolm wants to study English. So this is busy, a very busy chart here, but let me go over some of the highlights. So here are the colleges that Malcolm applied to. Some of these are public in-state, some of them are public out-of-state. Malcolm applied to Princeton and some private colleges as well. The COA is the cost of attendance. So this includes tuition, room and board, fees, books. The college gets to publish this information. And as you can see, Gettysburg, where my daughter went, one of the highest costs of attendance in this list. And Rutgers is the lowest cost of attendance. The next column is EFC, effective family contribution. We talked about that. The letter after the number, I, F, or C, is the type of methodology they use. F is federal, so you can see that the EFC for the federal method is 31,000 for Malcolm. For the consensus method, it's slightly higher. The only consensus school here is Princeton. It's 32,000. But for the institutional method, because it probably uses some of those retirement funds, it's quite a bit higher, 36,000. So the COA minus the EFC is the need. So the need is 42,000 at Gettysburg, because Gettysburg is an expensive school. And I'll just go down the line there. So Gettysburg happens to meet 90% of the need. 94% of the need is met with grants. So Gettysburg is actually predicted, in this case, to offer $35,917 as need-based grant money. Now, because this is a good, Malcolm is a great student, or decent student, he is expected to get $18,140 for merit scholarship from Gettysburg. Well, unfortunately, you can't stack this, or historically, you haven't been able to stack this. So the school often gives the needs money or the merit money, but not both. Usually, the higher amount. I have to tell you that my experience this year is different. The schools have been more generous, and I have schools that actually are providing both need and merit money at the same time. So that's great. What it's going to be next year, I don't know. So as you can see, the schools vary. I'll just point out Alabama. I picked that one because of the geography. I guess Alabama doesn't get that many New Jersey students. They'd love to get Malcolm as a student, and they're going to give $28,000 as a merit scholarship. Or that's predicted. That's predicted from historical results. So actually, if Malcolm wanted to go to Alabama, that would be the lowest cost here, even lower than going to TCNJ or Rutgers. Most expensive option is actually the University of Delaware, a public university in Delaware that a lot of New Jersey students go to. Why? Because they don't really meet need very well, and because they're not generous with merit scholarships, according to this prediction engine. So, you should use this as a tool, something like this, but don't, there's a reason why you apply. And I'm running behind. I hope people don't mind. But let's quickly talk about the Fafsa changes, because that's important. It's going to be for the 2023-2024 school year. It was legislation that was part of both the CAA and CARES Acts. So one thing is they're getting rid of the EFC because nobody liked expected family contribution. Instead, they're going to call it Student Aid Index. It's the same thing. They renamed it. It's exactly the same thing. The Fafsa form will be much shorter. It's going to be 36 questions instead of 100. There'll be more ability for the data to be automatically entered from the tax return. I would expect that although the questions, there'll be fewer questions, you'll probably have to do more math to answer those questions. So it remains to be seen. Simplification of forms often doesn't really simplify them because they still need the information. For divorce situations, now it's actually going to be the parent who provides the most financial support, or if the parents are equal in financial support, it will be the parent with the highest adjusted gross income to fill out the form. So the little bit of the benefit for a student with divorced parents, unfortunately, that changes. And one of the worst things is that the discount for multiple children in college is eliminated. A lot of people are complaining about this. Theoretically, maybe it'll be changed or fixed, but that's the way it is right now. There are some additional changes. There'll be easier Pell Grant eligibility. Drug-related convictions no longer a bar to financial aid. If your undergraduate degree takes more time than the 5 years, now you can get loans for all the years. And loans are available. I mean, they're available now, even if you don't go full time. I think you have to go at least take half the number of credits as a full-time load. And grandparent aid is no longer counted as untaxed income on the FAFSA. Not sure about the CSS because the colleges get to make those rules. I tell you what, I have some other tips here, but I'm going to kind of go to questions because we're running out of time.
Okay. Do you want me to read them from the chat? Because I know where they start, so I'm happy to read them.
Okay, sure.
And some of them are like comment kind of questions, so I'll start with something from Nina. I heard if you are awarded an outside scholarship, college lowers the amount of aid you get. Seems like conflicting answers on whether or not this is true. Do you have any comments on that? Or Nina, if you want to.
Yeah, no, I can answer that question. So the answer is that's related to financial aid, needs-based aid. Yes, outside scholarship money is counted against needs-based aid. And the college has its own policy regarding whether it's the loan aid that is counted against first, or whether it's the grant aid. They have to do that because actually of federal law, so it's not necessarily their fault, but it certainly will count against aid. So if it means that you don't have to take out a loan, if you get that outside scholarship, that's fine, that's good. But if it means they're going to reduce the grants, that's bad, and each college gets to make that rule themselves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next question, how would a school look at the income of a non-custodial parent? Would it combine assets or ignore the non-custodial parent's income or value?
Well, so all the rules are different. For the FAFSA schools, they will not count non-custodial parents at all for the upcoming year. For the year after, when the new rules kick in, they're going to use the parent that provides the greatest financial support. So, custody no longer matters. For students who use the CSS, they're going to ask questions about the non-custodial parent, and both parents count equally. I think they're going to, they put it together.
Okay. Is CSS aid given on the first come, first served basis, or is it submitted at the same time as FAFSA?
You usually would do the FAFSA form first, but basically you would do the forms at the same time. Remember, the aid is provided through the college financial aid office after application. So, you're usually not applying October 1st, so you can do the aid applications first. Is aid first come, first served? To some extent it is, but that's not a hard and fast rule. If you apply November and fill out the forms in November, you still can get plenty of aid, probably December as well. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about it, but I think you want to, you don't want to be sort of caught flat-footed, so to speak, and do it really late.
Okay. Can you possibly go back to the business piece? If I own a small business, are they going to make me do something to my business to cover tuition?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Sure. So can you possibly go back to the business piece? If I own a small business, are they going to make me do something to my business to cover tuition?
Well, first of all, they never tell you how to pay for college. They're just telling you how much they expect you to pay. So keep that in mind. and the business, they are looking at the small business and they're trying to determine a valuation. How do they know what the valuation of the small business is? They're going to ask you things like your revenue and profit. They might ask you how much you think it's worth, but you can put, they're not making you go and get an appraisal of the business. They can't make you do that.
Okay, thank you. How do institutions decide the percentage of grants versus loans that they are going to give you?
I guess they really have a general policy on that. So, the most loans that they can give you is typically the federal loan, which is, the $5,500. Some of them count that as aid. Actually, when you get your financial package, you have to be very careful to understand what's grants and what's aid. But they publish the information. They have a policy, those percentages that I had on my slide, and that's typically what they stick with.
Okay, great. If you receive a merit aid based on applying for a specific major, do you lose the aid if you switch majors?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and the answer is no.
Wow, that's a question.
So if you go into RPI as an English major and then switch to electrical engineering, which is their biggest major, in the next year, they no, they're not going to change that. Now, there is scholarship money that may be tied to something. So, for instance, maybe you get a music scholarship that's tied to your participating in a music program in the college. That you could lose by by no longer participating.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We have a question. What is income-driven repayment?
It is repayment based on the income, a percentage of the income that you earn. That's simply what it is. And there've been a number of different programs that use different percentages. So I actually I can't tell you them off the top of my head, although I could look them up.
Okay, thank you. How do parent 2020-2021 earnings affect a 2022 fall student? For example, loss of wages.
That's a very good question. So that's actually grounds for appeal. So you can tell the college about special circumstances. You can do it up front, or you can wait for an appeal. There are pluses and minuses for both. It's grounds for an appeal, so it helps you get your appeal heard if you've had that change. So some consultants say, hold back and just, give them the information from 2019 and, hold back the current information. But I think it's good to tell them up front that it's changed. And you can communicate with the financial aid office. You basically can call them and say, this situation's changed. What do I do? They'll probably tell you to write them a letter. If they're a FAFSA school, they might tell you to fill out a form for CSS. And CSS has a big section for special circumstances that you can put that in.
Okay, good, thank you. Last question from the chat. If a relative other than a grandparent decides to give money for school, say more than $10,000, will that decrease financial aid?
Yes. The answer is yes. So that's considered untaxed income. So remember, they're asking about income for the prior year. So that's why I said if you're going to use that kind of aid, you might want to divide it up so that you're only doing that the last 2 years of college. So maybe, you know, you use up all of your other resources the first 2 years, and then get that help from the relative the last 2 years. Doesn't matter whether it's grandparent, other relative, friend. Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is you could create a private loan. So maybe maybe that's not actually gift from the relative. That could be a loan with an interest rate, and then the loan could be forgiven after college.
Okay.
Well, it's
One
like
more.
your grandparent pays for the college. How is the, if you go through the whole process and you don't know that someone's going to pay for you, and then all of a sudden you get, they tell you you have to pay $10,000, let's say, and then grandma steps in and says, I'll write the check. How is the college going to know?
Well, that's going to affect you 2 years later. But you're right. How is the college going to know? That's a good question. How is the college going to know? And I don't know the answer to that. The college may not know.
Okay.
But they also may ask you, and you know, you're signing that you signed truthfully. And
I see. Okay.
I guess if they ever find out, they could say, oh, you lied. And do I know cases? No. I mean, I think most people might just not talk about that. But that's what I said. Make it a loan. Just call it a loan. And then it's not even income, so it's not an issue.
We did have one more question from the chat. If a college is not need blind, is it harder to get in if you have a low EFC? Is it worth it to apply?
It is. I think it's always worth it to apply because you don't know what the college is looking for. Now, if this is a, you know, if this is a stretch school academically, you think you're not going to get much money, you know, merit-wise, then maybe, you know, why bother? So, you know, to be honest, you know, why did Malcolm apply to Princeton? Malcolm isn't going to get into Princeton. And, but Malcolm has chosen to apply to Princeton. My daughter applied to Dartmouth and Brown. I didn't think there was any chance she was get into Dartmouth or Brown, and she didn't.
All right. If anybody else has a question, you can unmute and ask David while we still have him here. Otherwise, thank you so much, David. That was really helpful.
So informative, David. Thank you. Actually, can we ask everybody to unmute and give David a warm round of applause? Thank you so much. This was really helpful. I think I asked the most questions out of everyone.
You're welcome. Well, I wanted to mention, so I have a guide to that gives more details about these student loans and also some of the available tax benefits. And if you want that guide, just send me an email and I'll send it to you. Also, if anybody's interested in a demo of the software I have, and you know, to talk about the college money match, I'd be happy to have a conversation. Again, just email me. And if you just have some added questions that you didn't get to ask and you want to ask me, I'm perfectly happy to answer questions offline.
Yeah, we'll share your email in a post email to everyone. This way they can get a hold of you.
Sure, and I could actually provide the slides because I did skip over a couple of slides because of time.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. All right. And I don't see any more questions. I think we'll end for today.
Okay. Well,
Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Yes, thank you for coming, and we'll send out information on our next Lunch and Learn as well.
It was a pleasure, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, bye.